How's it going, everyone? Welcome into NOLA Preps Friday Night Live. Spencer Urquhart here with Dabe and Joe Halm. So another Friday night in the books. Over halfway through the regular season. Got a handful of games tomorrow and Saturday, but most of the big ones are knocked out here on tonight, and had some Thursday night as well that were kind of interesting. But we'll start with tonight. I'll start it off with the game I was at, Holy Cross and John Curtis. John Curtis ended up holding on for the win there, 21-13. It was a close game there that ended up almost going Holy Cross's way. They were driving down. It looked like they had a chance to take the lead there potentially, but then they threw a long pass that got intercepted by Jewel's Tap, who I believe returned it 50 yards for a touchdown. It's hard to see the exact amount of yards, but it looked like about 50 yards, caught it around midfield and took it all the way. Could have just stepped out potentially and let him run out the clock, but JT Curtis after said he was not upset with the kid, wanted him to have his moment. So that was kind of an interesting tidbit there, because it was in the closing minutes there. Then Holy Cross got it back with less than 2 minutes. Had a chance they were trailing 8 at that point, but weren't able to get anything going there, and ended up running out of time. Time expired. That was that 21-13 win for John Curtis. They got off to a good start there at their run game, but then Holy Cross seemed to adjust pretty good. But unfortunately for them, now winless in district play there. Curtis 3-0 in Catholic League play. I know, Chris, you've seen these teams and pretty much all the Catholic League teams, but just they haven't. Holy Cross and Warren Easton 0-3. Man, it just goes to show the depth of this district.
Yeah, especially when considering going into district play, we were talking about how, combined, I think there was only one loss among all the schools in the district, and that was Rummel. So you had all these 3-0 teams coming in, but yeah, when they all start playing each other, I mean, the coaches say it every week about how it's a gauntlet, and you hear the same thing every week, the SEC of high school football and whatnot. And I really do think it kind of rings true when you're talking the top to bottom, kind of the depth in that district. There is no week off. There is no game that a team can, maybe rest a few players or to get them healthy and stuff like that. If you want to win games in this league, you got to earn them all. So that certainly shows to be true. So it's not surprising to see Holy Cross play close against what seems to be a very good John Curtis team this year. Just like last week, Easton gave Curtis a pretty good run for its money, and Curtis came away with a win there.
For sure. Yeah, Curtis seems to have a knack there for getting those close ones done there in the fourth quarter. Obviously, very well-coached team there, Coach JT Curtis. And another Catholic League team has been trending up lately, Rummel. They got their second district win in a row there, 28-14 over Easton. Chris, I know you were at that one last night, Thursday night, a 9-5A matchup. How'd Rummel look there against Warren Easton?
Yeah, they it was pretty steady. Jaden Terrence, he ran for 167 yards. He started out, he's a quick little running back there, but he started out with his first 3 runs, each one for more than 30 yards. So after 3 carries, he had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they were up 14-0, and then Tyler Holden added a couple of touchdown passes there in the third quarter, made it 28-0. So even though the 28-14 score makes it seem a little closer, Easton got their touchdowns in the fourth quarter, including one on the final play of the game. So it kind of made it look a little closer than it was. But yeah, I thought Rummel played well, both sides of the ball. Tyler Holden, he's a junior quarterback, first year as a starter, and Nick Monica even talked after the game about how pleased he was with some of the decision making that he was making out there. One of his touchdown passes came on a rollout to the right side and deep throw to the receiver along the sideline, kind of a play action pass, and resulted in a touchdown. And Tyler said after the game that they ran that play earlier in the game, and he kind of went to the shorter receiver in the flat and saw that the deeper receiver was open. So when they went back to it a second time, he looked down farther down the field and made that throw. So maybe that's a sign of a quarterback kind of getting more comfortable. And Nick Monica even said after the game that all the coaches believe in him. They just need him to believe in himself. They believe he can be one of the best quarterbacks in 9-5A, which I think is really saying something. So, Rummel, and there's many teams in that district, but Rummel's one of these teams that I think every year they're never what they are they're always something different in week 10 than they are in week 1. They're one of those teams that you always see kind of progress throughout the course of the year, and then and I think that's how some of these teams, even if they lose 2 or 3 or 4 district games, they still end up going to the semifinals. They still up making a good playoff run, and you know, and Rommel has a better record than that, but I think they might be rounding into something that could be tough to beat.
For sure. He had brother Martin, Coach Mark Bodnese had mentioned that to me last night about playing this tough schedule to get you ready for the playoffs, assuming you get in there, because there's usually 1 or 2 9-5A teams that get left out. But brother Martin, they played Carr. I don't want to say tough, but they did, though, as far as they in the second half, they kept fighting. I'll give them credit there. That was just, Carr, we know what Carr is. They're a nationally ranked team. It's going to be tough for many teams to compete with them. But Easton Royal, for Brother Martin, the 5-star recruit, made an incredible catch. I'm sure y'all seen it on social media, a viral catch where he basically caught it one-handed and on his shoulder pad to get a second touchdown there late in the game there last night. But it was Carr all the way. They've just got too much talent there. But if Brother Martin gets in there, you never know. I mean, the playoffs are a whole new season. So, and the other 9-5A game you were at, Chris, St. Aug Jesuit, St. Aug looking to get back in the win column there, and they did 46-23. Talk to us about that one tonight.
Yeah, that one was kind of close early on, 6-6 at one point in the second quarter, but then St. Aug they looked again like the team that they did in the 4 weeks before they played Carr. With some big scoring plays there. Raekwon Williams 71-yard touchdown pass, Miguel Whitley a 65-yard touchdown pass. Both there I think they were both in the second quarter, and that widened the game. And then the score kind of got wider from there at one point with St. Aug leading 34-9. So just some of the big play passes from Rashawn Coulon. He finished with 439 passing yards. And so yeah, it was for St. Aug. It was good to see them kind of just rebound back to what they were looking like before they played Carr. And I think that's what Robert Valdez, the head coach, probably wanted to see, was his team just come out and still be firing on all cylinders like they were beforehand. There's no hangover from the loss to Carr. So next week they play Rummel. I think that'll be on a Saturday night, and that has a chance that should be a real interesting game. That's two teams that I think either one could beat the other. That's going to be a real competitive, solid game there, though. But Jesuit, they were able to move the ball a little bit on St. Aug, but they could never get it in the end zone. Their expected starting quarterback Taylor Norton, he's still out. He's been missed the last 5 weeks with a thumb injury, and every week Ryan Manali says it's kind of week to week. So you need your thumb to grip the football. So if it's not coming back all the way healed, then he can't be out there. And Sully Sullivan was the quarterback again, and he played well last week in the win against Holy Cross, but today he faced a little bit more pressure than he may have faced against Holy Cross, so that made things a little bit harder. But they did move the ball a little bit. They got 3 field goals there in the first half, and then but it wasn't until the fourth quarter until they found the end zone. And a high scoring team like St. Aug, you gotta reach the end zone more than just a couple of times late.
Gotcha. You're watching the NOLA Press Friday night post-game show here live, recapping week 6. So let's shift gears a little bit to some North Shore preps, Joe. I know you were at Mandeville Covington. Mandeville came away with a 26-9 victory there. Talk to us about how that game went down.
Yeah, that game was interesting. Opening kickoff, Ronnie Clark for Covington recovered the fumble. 3 plays later, Covington scores on a 26-yard Mason Cryer TD catch. 90 seconds into the game, Covington's up 7-0 at home. Things are looking a little iffy for Mandeville, and Mandeville didn't blink. They just went right down the field. They got a field goal They scored a couple of touchdowns in the second quarter. The defense settled in. It was 17-7 at half, and Mandeville seemingly in control, and they were. Luke DeMello had a 44-yard sort of bubble screen where he just was perfectly blocked, sees part, he races down the sideline. That makes it 24-7 midway through the third, and that was it. I mean, Mandeville cruised from there. Covington could never get anything going offensively. They only had 130 yards in the game. They made a quarterback switch in the second half to Andrew Reynolds, who was in the quarterback competition with Matthew Fusel in the summer. Fusel wanted out. That was just to try to start up the offense. Mandeville's defense still made a couple of fourth down stops in the fourth quarter to kill any sort of late hope that might have happened. And all of a sudden, Mandeville, who had a tough loss at Slidell and was struggling a bit last week against North Shores, won 2 in a row. And they look like a team that's found themselves a little bit. They sort of ground the game out offensively. They were committed to the running game. They didn't have a lot of rushing yards. They rushed for under 100, but it was enough on all of those big passes to get the defense to bite a little bit. The bubble screens open, the quick slants open, and they just sort of ground this game out, which was really good to see from a team that's pretty young and, sort of still finding their identity after losing Ben Hendricks in the second week of the season, or in the first week near the end of the first game. So Mandeville, it was really a statement win for them. They needed it. Coach Craig Jones was, he said as much after the game. He's like, that was a win that we needed. We needed to sort of feel good against a good opponent on the road. So now they open district play with a win, and seems like the ship's sailing in the right direction for the Skippers.
For sure. Yep. Had some other notable ones there. Lakeshore got done against Franklinton there, 41-27. And then North Shore with another big win there for the Panthers. Talk to us about some other games that stood out to you, Joe.
Yeah, that North Shore game is really, it was a game that I thought would be close. The game's always close. Even when Salmon was in 4A, they played North Shore in their pre-district schedule, so it's a rivalry game in Slidell. North Shore is a good team. They're a team that Bobby Sanders is a funny guy. I always joke with him. When they won 2 weeks ago, I said, you took away my favorite line in my column every week, is that North Shore is the best, better than their Owen whatever record says they are. And now I can't say that anymore, Bobby. What are you doing? Last week, they don't quite get it done against Mandeville, who's a good team. And how do they come back when they open district? They came back and won on the road against a good Salmon team, where J.J. Gonzalez scores a winning touchdown. Their quarterback, it was sort of a grow-up game for him. He's a junior. It's his first year fully starting. North Shore is a better team than their record indicates because, like St. Charles Catholic did last year, they played a tough schedule, and they got beat up for it. They're better than the record is because they lost to Picayune and Curtis, and they went on the road at Mandeville and they gave Mandeville a hard time, a difficult time that they needed to win in the fourth quarter. That's not surprising to me, but it's a good sign for North Shore to open district like that, especially with Chalmette coming up. That's a game where if they win that game, they're in control of that district because preseason wise, Salmon and Chalmette were probably the two teams each of us would have said is going to compete. Those are the two teams that would be 1 and 2 in that district. And now all of a sudden North Shore can start the district 2-0 and have wins over those two teams. So that's a huge win for them. And for Lakeshore, I mean, we all know what happened at Franklinton last year in the quarterfinals. It was a great playoff game. Came up a little short. Franklinton goes to the Dome. I think both teams felt like if they won that game, they were going to the Dome. They felt that confident in their ability. Last week, Lakeshore got beat up at Salmon. They had some fumbles. They lost some players. Kyle Gegenheimer's out for the year with a knee injury. That's their biggest threat on offense. How would they bounce back? They bounce back by never punting the ball. They scored, 41 points? They scored 41 points. The only 2 times a drive didn't end in a score was a missed field goal and when they kneeled it out to end the game against a good Franklinton team. Now, Jacob Crane's nursing a thumb injury. He hit it on a helmet last week. He still threw for almost 300 yards. He only had 5 incompletions, and he threw for 3 touchdowns. So he might not have been 100%, but he's still pretty doggone good. And Lakeshore is able to come out and get a statement win to open district. And now they feel like they're going to be able to sort of run the table from here on out, or at least get to Hahnville in week 10 and have a chance to run the table against a 5A school that'll help them in the PowerPoint. That was a huge win for them, and more importantly, it was a huge bounce back for a team that is going to have to navigate some injuries for the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Yes, indeed. A few other interesting scores from this week. Shaw, a big win for the Shaw Eagles, 24-20 over St. James. St. James had a big win last week over St. Charles, a team that's in Shaw's district. And yeah, big win there for Shaw, 24-20. And then I believe that one called the Magnet Bowl there. Haynes, Thomas Jefferson, Haynes able to get the win there, 35-27. And that's one we had covered this week. Looked like the Brady Cribby show there for Haynes. We're able to take a look at that one, Chris, to see what went down there between Haynes and Thomas Jefferson. It looked like a good game.
Yeah, you mentioned Brady Cribby. I know he's rushed for. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he's topped 300 yards in one game recently, 200 yards last week. So it's not surprising to see him get another high rushing total again this week. But yeah, that's kind of their rivalry game. That Haynes Thomas Jefferson. That was the opening of district play for that 3A district, and that's a pretty competitive district for the schools that are in there.
For sure, yeah. De La Salle finally got their first win, 48-7 there over Sophie B. Wright. So good to see De La Salle finally get a win.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be surprising to see them kind of pick up more wins in district play. And I think whenever they play Kennedy, I think that might be week 9. I would kind of expect that to be sort of for the district title, and that being assured of a playoff spot and all that kind of stuff. So, but there's some other teams in that district that would like to have something to say about that, but that's sort of how I'm viewing it.
Heard that. And so, all right. Any other thoughts on this week before we
Yeah, St. Charles came up with a big win against Terrebonne, and Terrebonne being a good 5A school. St. Charles won 31-28, and so we seems like every week we kind of make mention of them somewhere along the way in our show. But last week they lost to St. James, so to see them bounce back against Terrebonne is pretty good. Bonneville, they beat East Jefferson 67-0, which I think in that Jefferson Parish Public Schools district, when you see, I think anytime you see a score like that, you gotta kind of give credit to the team that won there, and wonder how things are going to play out as that district moves along. Riverdale has played well this year, and they beat John Ehret last week, and I think a lot of people are familiar with some of the success John Ehret has had in recent years. But maybe I think that Bonneville Riverdale game, whenever they match up, might be one that kind of decides the district title. So I think some of these I know we give a lot of attention to some districts more than others, but certainly it's worth trying to figure out, okay, which games might really decide that district title, and maybe give a team some momentum for getting a playoff winner too.
For sure. But yeah, next week, speaking of districts, get a lot of attention. 9-5A, we got Brother Morton, John Curtis on Friday, as well as Carr Jesuit, and then a Saturday doubleheader there. Rummel St. Aug looks to be the game of the week there in 9-5A, and then Easton Holy Cross.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, well, they're all have potential to be good games. I think that Rummel St. Aug game is kind of interesting. They both have one loss in district play. Rummel losing by 2 points against John Curtis, and St. Aug with the loss last week against Carr. So if I remember right, last year Rummel was 5-2 in district. That's a pretty good mark. I think it's easy to kind of forget about the other teams behind Carr just because they've been so dominant for the 3+ years that they've been in this district. They've only lost once. That was 2 years ago against Curtis. And so, seeing Rummel with that mark last year and being off to a good start this year, I think that's, if you're trying to if you figure Carr's going to, I think it's Carr's district until it's not, like I said last week. So if you're looking at who might finish second, that's going to be a big game that kind of decides that. And certainly there's going to be PowerPoint implications and playoff seedings, and along with just the regular pride of trying to win as many Catholic League games as you can.
For sure. And Joe, I know you mentioned Slidell Covington next week, a big game on the North Shore, and North Shore Chalmette. You mentioned that could be a big game in that district. See if North Shore can keep their momentum going. What are your thoughts on next week's North Shore slate?
Yeah, I think it all starts on Thursday. North Lake's going to Pope.
I
Those
forgot about
teams
that one. Yeah.
those teams won. North Lake won 59-0 against Kenner Discovery. Pope won 42-6 against St. Thomas Aquinas this week. So those two teams are obviously playing well offensively. I think it could be a shootout. I think it could be 21-20. Regardless, it's going to be a close game. That game's decided the district the last 2 years. It'll probably decide the district this time around. So that'll be a fun way to start it off. It'll be rocking in Slidell on Thursday. And then, like you mentioned, I think Slidell Covington's a sneaky game because Slidell's going to want to get a key road win, right? Like, that's the one thing they don't necessarily have right now on their record. They're a team that's been better than they have been in the past. They're growing up a little bit. They're still young, but that offense is really good. Now they get to go to Covington. It's not an easy place to play. Coach Salter will have that team ready. They have a really stout defense. That defense plays well. Mandeville was able to just sort of wear them down today. And Covington will be looking to get back on a winning track. It's a non-district game this year because the district split. So I think that one's interesting. And then North Shore, like I mentioned, man, Coach Sanders, if he scheduled better early, we might be talking about how this team should be ranked. But he wants to play all the big schools early, and they took some lumps early in the season, and now I think you're seeing the reward for that. So having the district champion come to your place when you're 1-0 in district, and you've beat the other team that's going to be competing for a district title, you're feeling pretty good. Let's see if they can handle that good feeling and give a good Chalmette team a test, because if they win that game, Chris mentioned it. We talk about how districts are going to shake out. If North Shore wins that game, they should win that district because they're better than the other. They should win the other two district games on their schedule based on results so far this season. And if you could do that, that would be huge for that program.
Good stuff. Well, we'll see what happens there next week, week 7, week 6 in the books. Another good show breaking it down here for Chris, Dabe, and Joe Halm, and Spencer Urquhart with the NOLA Preps Friday Night Live post-game show. We'll see y'all next week.